What's up, guys? Parables Podcast, EJ Cruz. Woo! Man, look who I got in the building. It is the infamous, legendary Slushgod. What's up, brother?
Yo,
dude. Thanks for coming on the podcast, dude. It is raining like crazy right now, and dude, I'm glad you got here safe, man, because it's just like it's wild right now with the world. You know, we were talking about what's going on with the world with coronavirus, and dude, I appreciate taking the time out of your busy day to come through, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. I battled several elements to get here, and I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. This has been something I've looked forward to for a long time. So
yeah, dude, really cool. Dude, man, I gotta say, I've been looking forward to this episode just because of, I think a lot of people, don't know who the Slushgod is. There's obviously a good amount of people that do. You know what I mean? But I'm curious to know because I don't even know the backstory of the Slushgod himself, Slushcult and everything that you've been able to create, and this basically a movement, man.
Yeah, it's been a hell of a ride, and yeah. I'm excited to be on it. It's been a really crazy almost 5 years.
Wow.
So yeah, we're still fairly new in the game, but it's been a crazy journey. So I'm excited to kind of dive in and just do, this will be, I mean, for listeners or watchers, this will for sure be probably the most personal interview I've ever done, because obviously
appreciate that
I keep the no face, no case kind of thing going.
Yeah.
And there's several different reasons for that. Part of it, is it kind of allows me to have an internet persona, and, obviously Slushgod is not my real name. But the biggest, most important part is that it really makes people focus on the brand.
Of course.
Versus focusing on me. And when we started this, a lot of that, especially in streetwear, was very the opposite of that, where a lot of people were starting brands basically just to put out there, like, look at me, like, I want the flashy car, I want the diamond ring, I want this, I want that, and like the whole like I want to be a celebrity thing was very much in place. Yeah. And I was kind of like the exact opposite of that, where like, yes, I want the brand to be big and I want our community to grow, but this shouldn't matter. And that's kind of why it kind of has worked for so long. And I don't know, I mean, only time will tell if I do it forever, but I think it's going to be something that we kind of latch onto for a long time, just because it makes it a lot of fun. But it also makes it more interesting for you guys, just because like you can really relate to me even though you don't know who I am. And I think that kind of like weird juxtaposition is really fun, because like I've had people tell me like, dude, you're like the most personable brand. Like I feel so connected to you. And like you talk to me in my DMs and whatever, but I don't know who you are. Yet there's other people who like, you can Google all kinds of shit about them and figure out who they are, what kind of car they drive, what kind of house they have. But yet you'll never actually speak to them directly, or you'll never feel connected with that brand as much as you would with Slushcult. So it's been a crazy ride, and I'm just kind of excited to be here, man.
Just riding along, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it seems like it was like a strategy, and also you just felt that also everyone was doing a little, you wanted to do something different.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was, so a lot of what we do with the brand is strategic branding to make everything seem like it's on accident.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's the ease of use is kind of like a branding strategy on its own, where it's like, oh man, like, oops, we did this. When people don't realize, they're like, dude, I busted my ass for like 6 months prior to that behind the scenes trying to get everything ready so that it makes it seem so easy, and like that's something that we've done for a long time. But at the core of it, it wasn't so much a strategy move. It was more of, I truly do feel like if you really want to do something that people will hold on to and it will last a long time, people have to care about people have to care about the entity itself just as much as they do about you. Yeah. Right? So like, even though like all of your homies and your family like really respect you and really like you, like your customer base has to like the podcast. Yeah. And like, so true. Yes, you're a big part of that, but like if the biggest celebrity in the world has a really shitty TV show it's still a shitty TV show.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where this allows me to focus purely on the brand. And that came really just from the core value of that. That's what I wanted to start. I didn't want it to be something where it was like, look at me type thing.
Yeah. No, I completely get what you're saying. It's almost like, for instance, with this podcast, it's like two entities technically. There's one that's EJ Cruz, and then there's the podcast. For all I know, there's people who listen to it because of me, but then also, for all I know, they listen to it just maybe because of my guests.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Hopefully it's because of me, y'all. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, so dude, let's go back in time.
All right.
Talk about yourself and kind of how everything came about with Slushcult, man. Like, where's your humble beginning start?
For sure. So I am born and raised from Southern California. I kind of have this weird 2-part life where part of me is from Orange County and part of me is from the Inland Empire.
Okay.
I was born in Huntington Beach, but basically my entire family's kind of from the Orange County surrounding area, and their family business that my dad worked forever was based in Buena Park. For some weird reason, half my family got this like weird idea when I was born that was like, oh, it's so much cheaper to buy a house in Riverside, and we'll just commute to Orange County. It's only like a half an hour.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't last very long, because if you've ever driven on like the 91 freeway, that's like, my dad would commute like 4 hours to work sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, it like sounded like a really good idea, but then as soon as it happened, it was like, why on earth did you ever leave Orange County? I don't get it.
Yeah.
But so I grew up in Riverside, and I don't know. I think I grew up like any other kid. Other than the fact that like I was kind of alone a lot as a kid, just because like I'm a single child. Like I didn't have any. I had a half sister, but she was 10 years older than me, so it was like she didn't want anything to do with me. She wanted to hang out with her friends and kind of do whatever. And she only lived with us part of the time.
Yeah.
So like from a very early age, I kind of had to learn like that it was okay for me to be by myself. And I had to learn, like, I grew up in a neighborhood where there was like one other kid, and like I didn't even realize that kid existed until I was already like 11. So like my very early on was just like, not necessarily like, oh, like woe was me, I was like by myself all the time, but it was just like I had to learn like to keep myself entertained.
Yeah.
So whether that was like drawing, playing with Legos, like whatever it was, like I was very comfortable very fast being kind of like, all right, cool, like I'm in my own little world and I can kind of create my own things and keep myself busy. So like my mom's not freaking out and like my dad is at work all the time.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what sparked a lot of my early on creative juices. Was the fact that like I didn't have brothers and sisters and I didn't really have a whole lot of friends that lived around me. So it was like, all right, cool. Like I'm going to draw on this piece of paper for the next hour and a half.
You were looking at other different outlets almost, like you didn't
exactly. So it was like, whether it was video games or like riding bikes in my backyard or it was like, I just learned kind of to be comfortable with like, okay, cool. Like it's me and I've got to figure out like something to do to keep me from going crazy. And that kind of turned into creative. So like I was drawing at a very early age, painting, kind of like Play-Doh, Legos, like sculpture, like whatever I could get my hands on. I was like really secret nerd alert. I have a hashtag that I'm kind of working on called secret nerd shit. This is definitely part of it. But I was like really, really into puppets when I was a kid. Like Jim Henson was like God for me. Because I was just like, the idea behind it of like someone created that and is able to make you for like a split second forget that it's not real.
Yeah.
So like I would like make my own puppets and like it was just like I was just a weird kid that like made stuff all the time, super early on. And then I think because the business that my dad worked for was like the family business, I saw also from a very early age like the entrepreneur side, where it was like I don't want to be stressed out like my mom all the time because she worked, like jobs like all the time. It was like very stressful, and it was like my dad was also really stressed all the time, but it was like that stress is the kind of that I want, because it's like more gratifying at the end of the day that like it's your business, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of grew up with like that pride of the family business was ours.
Yeah.
And like whether it was doing really well or whether it was doing not so good, it was still ours. And like that, you know, like I grew up at a very young age, like following my dad to trade shows. Basically my family made construction equipment for a long time.
Gotcha.
So my dad was basically like a manufacturer. He welds, cuts metal, welds it together, like made, you know, construction equipment basically like at a factory. And so like I learned what a trade show was when I was like really little, because I used to go with him to like all like the weird, you know, like the Tractor Supply construction type stuff.
Okay, so construction related trade shows.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh man, this is cool. Like if you own your own brand, you like go do this and do a booth. And like, you know, I realizing it now that like I was really intrigued by that early on, even though like that didn't click until like literally right now.
Yeah.
But so I saw that and I was like, dang, I really would love to do something like that when I grow up. Like I never had the goal of like, I want to be a firefighter, Dad. Like, I want to be a policeman. It was like, I want to do art, or I want to make something
artistic,
or go work for Jim Henson, or go, like I wanted to do something that had to do with creativity. And my first time like actually experiencing that kind of bug, like that entrepreneurial bug, was in 3rd grade. I went to a private school, which I hated, but it was basically like there was no self-expression there, because everyone had to wear uniforms. Everyone had to dress the same. It was very like this weird, like soldier-esque, like 1984
like
type.
no expressions whatsoever.
Yeah, just like you couldn't do anything. Like you had to wear certain shoes, you had to wear certain pants, certain, you know, polo shirt. And I hated that, because I was just like, that was like the exact opposite. Clearly exact opposite of me. But like, I was like, man, there has to be a way that like I can help me and my friends kind of like express ourselves. So I don't even know how it really came up, but I wanted to start making wallets, because we were allowed to carry wallets, and it was you could carry whatever you want.
Okay.
So I made my mom in 3rd grade teach me how to use a sewing machine. And I was that weird kid that was in 3rd grade sewing stuff and getting made fun of for it. But
why do you think wallets though? Like, was there?
I think maybe it was just like an easy thing to try to make. I don't know. I don't really know where that came from.
Okay. It's like an everyday thing that everyone uses, and you're just like,
yeah,
hey.
and like that was something that we could take to school.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's what it was.
Okay.
It was something we could take to school without getting caught.
Yeah.
Because you could put it in your pocket.
Yeah.
I made T-shirts too. Like the very first, like kind of attempt into fashion was I used to cut out stencils out of cardboard and get like a black shirt and spray them with bleach, because I like thought that's how T-shirts were made. I had no idea what screen printing was. So I was like that kid that probably like walked around the neighborhood with like really weird bleached up, weird looking clothes, but like that's kind of what made me who I was. But so in 3rd grade, I did the wallet thing, and I really just made one for me. And then I would go to school, and people would be like, whoa, where'd you get that? And I'm like, oh, I made it. And I'm like, oh, it's weird. Like, you make stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, sure. Thanks, other 3rd grade boys and girls.
You're like, humans are meant to create.
Yeah. So like, but I was like, oh man, like other kids want them. So then I started making them for other kids. And then it was like, oh, like people actually want stuff that I make. And like, that makes me feel good inside. Because it's like, they want a piece of me. Right. And like, especially like your boy's a big boy. So like, I've always been a big boy.
Snack boy.
And like, that's something where it's like, you know, going to a school and like getting picked on for being bigger or whatever. And like, it was kind of like, oh, like they don't care what, this doesn't matter anymore, because now they want something that I made.
Yeah.
And it was like, for me, it was like, oh shit, like that's a big deal to me. You know what I mean? And like, so that's kind of where it started really, really early. And then it kind of progressed. High school, I had like your typical high school experience. I
still private school or
no. I finally private school I hated.
Yeah.
I hated it because I felt like I wasn't learning anything.
Yeah.
Like I went to a private school where it was like one teacher is like your teacher.
Yeah.
Like for everything, math, history. Like it was just like you talk to one lady all day.
Yeah.
If that lady doesn't like you, then you're stuck with her the whole year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And 7th grade was coming, and I was finally like trying to convince my parents, like, yo, like, I don't want to go to the school anymore. Let me go to public school. My other friends who live around me go to public school. They seem to be doing better. I'm like not the greatest at math. I'm not the greatest reader. Like, I'm not learning. This sucks. Like, I need to be more prepared for life than this.
Yeah.
And my parents were like, all right, well, you can go to public school. So for elementary school, I got to go to public school for the first time. And it was like mind blowing to me because like I went to school with like very little minorities, very little. It was just like, it was a Catholic school. So it was like heavily, I mean, I think there was like maybe 3 or 4 black kids like in my whole school. And like, I always learned like love everybody. Like my family was very like open to everything. And like, but it was like, there's no one, I don't even have kids to interact with. I have like the same 15 kids in my class. And like, that's the only life experience that I'm getting.
Yeah. So not so much diversity, I guess it's safe to say.
It was just everything. Yeah. It was like, it just, so I'm not a huge fan of private school, but so I got to go to public school and it was like, oh my God, yes, this is what I always wanted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's hundreds of kids here.
Yeah.
And there's kids from all over the world and there's kids from all kinds of different backgrounds. There's weird kids, there's tall kids, there's skinny kids, there's fat kids. Like it was like, oh my God, like I'm not the only kid that's big.
Yeah.
Like what? Like I was the kid in class, right? So like I was like, oh man, like it's so much more open here. It's so much more like there's just so much more available to me to like play with type thing. So that was when I realized like I really kind of opened up and like really started experiencing way more of what there was to life. And it also made me feel better too because it was like, again, I didn't really have a whole lot of kids that lived around me because my parents lived in like kind of like a rural area. So it was like school was like I'm there. You know what I mean? Like I was not the kid that like hated going to school. I was a kid that was like sick. All my friends are at school. I'm going to school. You know, like, and it kind of, again, like that school actually had art classes for the first time. So like I never really had an even opportunity to do art as a younger kid because it was like mostly just like regular studies. There would be like a little project here and there, but it was like, you know, making your mom like a macaroni plate that said Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
So like as soon as I got to that school, I enlisted in like pottery class and like just like anything that had like just anything that wasn't regular classes. I was like, sign me up. Like I took drafting class, like just stuff that I would never even, I don't know why I signed up for it, but it was just like, for me, it was like, oh dude, they have classes that aren't math and language. Like, I'm in.
You're like anything aside
sign me
from
up
that.
For every elective. You know what I mean? Like,
I was going to say all the electives I'm on.
And so like that was kind of my first taste. And then I went to high school. High school, I had pretty like typical experience. I didn't really do great in school grade wise, but I didn't fail either. And I still kind of struggled because I didn't have the greatest math. I didn't have the greatest literature. But I got through it. I went to summer school like pretty much every single year. I had to go to summer school, but I did it and I completed it and graduated and all that stuff. And high school was the second time where I was like, man, I really want to do something. I don't really know what it is yet, but I want to do something that has to do with creative, right? So I would like start little clothing things here and there, even though I still didn't really know like what the ins and outs of making actual clothes was. Or like if someone wanted like something cool on their binder, because I went to school, this is like early 2000s when like the anti-backpack trend was a thing. So like everyone just carried around, everyone was like carrying around binders and like 6 books and struggling to carry all their stuff. But it was like, oh, I'm not carrying a backpack. That's not cool. You know what I mean? Like, so like, it was weird. It was like, everyone carried a binder. So I was a kid that was like, oh, like, do you want something cool on the outside of your binder? Like, I'll do it for you. Like, and I'll just like charge you a couple bucks or whatever. And like, it was like just something to do creatively that I was like, okay, like I need to make, not necessarily like business because I was young and I don't think that's really what I cared about, but it was like, I just want to be able to do something as like a service. forgot back up. 8th grade. 8th grade, second real opportunity of like entrepreneur happened. Tech decks became a thing.
Oh, yeah.
So there was a store, rest in peace, called KB Toys in the Tyler Mall in Riverside.
Oh, I remember that place.
They got all the cool toys before Toys R Us ever got them. And I don't know why, but they just always got stuff first. They got video games first. They got whatever it was.
And by the way, to everyone who doesn't know what tech decks are, the mini skateboards, right?
Yeah.
That you would play with your fingers.
Exactly.
It was like the coolest toy.
Yeah. So those came out when I was in 8th grade, and I just happened to stumble upon them when I like, this was like at the time when like mom dropped me off at the mall was like a cool thing. You just like walk around for 4 hours and do nothing. So I found them there and I bought a couple and took them to school, and everyone went crazy. And I was like, everyone was like, oh, where'd you get them? Where'd you get them? And like, I don't know why, but my first instinct was like, oh, you want one of these? I got you.
I'm the plug.
Yeah, like I'll be the toy plug. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know where that came from. It just kind of happened. Yeah. And it got to the point where like I was going to the mall and buying like 10, 15 and bringing them to school, selling them out of my backpack. Yeah. And like selling them to kids in class. And then that kind of like abruptly ended because like me and a buddy of mine, I think his name was Eric, actually like got not in trouble, but like called to the office because they thought I think we were like selling drugs. Yeah. And I was like, no, dude, like I'm selling Pokemon cards and tech decks and like, and there was like, oh, you can't sell stuff here. Like you're not allowed to, like that's, like they made up some excuse, like that's illegal. And I was like, oh, not really, but okay. Like, and cause that was when Pokemon cards also kind of like became a craze. So we would like sling, it was like just something. It was just like we're the plug, like sure,
whatever was hot, you'd probably want to try and come up on it.
Okay, so now back in high school. High school was when it was like, okay, like I want to do something. I don't really know what it is, but I really like clothes, and I want to make clothes. Part of the reason why I was so fascinated with clothing, the same way that I was like fascinated with puppets and stuff like really early on, was because I couldn't have a lot of stuff. It wasn't because my family was poor. It wasn't because, there's lots of reasons why people can't have things. My reason was because all the cool stuff that I wanted didn't come in my size. I was big. Yeah. So I would go to the mall and I'd be like, oh man, this shirt's rad. I want this shirt. Size large and up. Or like that was it. And like, oh, I want this. Oh, you can't have that. Oh, I want this. I want these cool pants. Oh, they don't make those in your size. So I learned really early on, like freshman year high school, when I like really started like care about how I dressed and try to get girls and stuff, that was like, oh man, like if I want to look cool, like the kid that, like the spoiled kid that his mom takes him to the mall and lets him buy whatever he wants, I have to either make that stuff or figure out a way to get something and like turn it into that. Yeah. And so that was when I was like, oh man, like there's not a whole lot of options out there for me. And I was just like, so I started making my own stuff. There, I went to regular high school, thank God. I could wear whatever I wanted. So I started like wearing my own shirts. It wasn't even necessarily a brand. It would just be like random stuff on a shirt that I made. Or like, like again, like me tie-dyeing stuff weird or bleach dyeing stuff weird. And kids started to notice it and kids started to like it. And I was like, oh man, like it's kind of that feeling again of like,
that you had before.
This is cool. Like I made this and like 3 or 4 kids were like, oh, where'd you buy that at? And like sometimes I wouldn't even tell them because I'd be embarrassed. Like, oh, like, oh, I found it at like the store. Like I just wouldn't tell people. Yeah. But I got that feeling again of like, oh man, this makes me feel good when I can express myself the way I want to, but then other people appreciate it. Yeah. And that was like the first time that I really was like, man, this could be something that I really want to do. At the same time, it was kind of that, I don't know if they still do this, but like my high school, it was like you either have to take a foreign language and like take French class or something, or you take art. Okay. So I was like, skirt, art. Yeah. Like sign me up. Again, electives, everything. I did sculpture. I did pottery. I did whatever, like whatever class they had, I took it. Even if I didn't want to do it, I just took it because it was a way for me to get out of a different class that may have been harder. But it was like anything art driven, I tried to take. I took video production. I took, they had like a couple different music type classes. And like, basically anything that you could do that was not like math or literature, I was all about.
Yeah.
And my art teachers were very like encouraging, and like, you know, it was kind of, we had a really cool couple teachers that were like, yeah, man, like keep doing this. Like it was, for me, it was not like super impactful at the time, but then like later on, I was like, oh man, like that encouragement definitely kept me going. And like my parents were always very supportive and like would buy me whatever I want, as far as like, you know, like, oh, you want markers or you want paint supplies. Like my parents let me paint. Dude, I painted my entire bedroom when I was younger. Terrible designs all over. Like, dude, no joke. My room was like bright teal walls. And then I would just take like Sharpies and like draw all over the place.
Dang.
And my dad, I know, was super pissed about it, but he kind of just was like, let it roll.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure they hated it when they had to like repaint it when I moved out. But like my whole wall was covered with like skateboard magazines, drawings, you know, like it was just like my whole room was like a collage of just like crap I liked.
Yeah. I'm sure they appreciate, like, oh, well, I guess it's better than doing drugs.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. So that kind of was always the thing. And then I graduated high school and it was time to go to college. And I was just like, dude, I'm not a big fan of school. I'm not very good at it. Why do I have to keep doing this? Like, I never understood that like society pressure of like, why do I have to keep doing this? Like, you know, like, but you know, obviously it was like everyone was pressuring me. So I was like, all right, well, where can I go that I'll go to school and I'll make my parents happy and I'll make society happy or whatever, but I can still be me and I can kind of like do what I want to do.
Yeah.
So fashion school came up, shot down immediately. It was like, my parents can't afford that. We're very like middle class growing, and it was like, oh, cool. Fashion school is like $70,000 a semester.
Yeah, it's like, expensive, man.
Okay, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah. So
then I was like, well, man, can I go to art school? Looked at art school, no way, same price. And I was like, shit, like I really want to do something that has to do with art and creativity or fashion or something, but like there's no way, like I'm not gonna make my parents pay for that. Like they can't. Like I knew they couldn't afford it. But there was a school that was kind of out towards like the Temecula area that was a junior college, but they had different campuses. And for some reason, the campus in Temecula was like the art campus. So you could go to that school and it was like kind of like going to art school, but wasn't the price. Like back then it was like $20 a unit. Yeah. Like it was like, I was like, oh, cheap. Sick. I can afford this. And I get the, you know, to my mind, it was like, I'm getting the same classes just with like way cheaper of a price. So I signed up for that and was kind of like, all right, cool. Like, I guess I'm the age where I have to go to college. Like that's what I'm going to do, I guess, you know? And I had been working at my dad's factory, like since I was like 12. Just kind of like, I was the kid that like my dad was like, oh, I'll pay you $50 to like organize this box of bolts, you know, like it was just kind of like making me busy, kind of babysitting me. But I'd worked there and I'd worked there long enough now to where I was like, okay, I really don't want to do that. That's way too much work. That's not fun. That's like construction is not probably pays really well. Nothing against construction people, but like was not what I wanted to do. Yeah,
it wasn't your thing.
And I was like, okay, like I'll give this a shot. Went there. I signed up again, all art electives. Like I didn't take a single math class. I didn't take literature. I was like, dude, I just barely passed math in high school. Yeah. You want me to pay to fail your class? Yeah. No, I'm good.
Yeah.
So I signed up for only art classes. All the counselors there hated me. The teachers there were super upset because it was like, I was going to go to college and get what I wanted out of it. I didn't care what anybody else thought. I didn't care what the counselors thought. I didn't care what my teachers thought. My goal was like, if I have to pay for this on my own dime, I'm going to go learn the shit that I want to learn. Yeah. And I'm not going to learn nothing else. Like that was definitely my vision of what I thought college was going to be. Yeah. Probably not the greatest in retrospect. But I went and I did, I think, the first year, and it was like maybe like the halfway point through the second year, and all my counselors were like, dude, you're not taking any of these classes, like you're not going to get your certificate, you're not going to, and like my whole mindset was like, I don't want a certificate, I don't care, like teach me how to draw, teach me how to paint, teach me how to use Adobe Illustrator, teach me how to use Photoshop, I'm out. Like I'm going to go do a brand.
Some people do that though, so that's kind of weird.
And like but at the time it was really weird. Like it was very frowned upon, at least in my vision, where it was like everyone was like, dude, like you're being so dumb, you're wasting your money, you're doing and like, I mean, granted, like, yeah, I would probably spend like most of my time in class working on stuff that I wanted to work on, and then I would like, you know, like they would make us like design, oh, today we're gonna like design a wine bottle, and I was just like, sick, I'll spend 4 minutes on that, and then I'll like design a line of t-shirts. And like my teachers would know that I was not doing that. And I had one teacher, I can't remember his name, but I had one teacher that I signed up for that specific class. It was like a really weird, it was graphic design, but it was graphic design for packaging. And to this day, I have a really weird fascination with packaging, where like for a long time, I don't have it anymore because I have moved several times, but I used to have a drawer in my house where it was just like all tags from like clothing. Oops, sorry. Like I would keep everything, like any kind of like plastic tag or like I had this weird fascination of like, if packaging is done really, really well, it changes the entire product.
Yeah. Changes the presentation, changes everything.
Yeah. It's like, it's everything, even though it's like the last thing people think about.
Yeah.
So I did this class, and he realized really early on that I like didn't really care about the curriculum, and I was like not into it at all, but I still wanted to be there because I was learning the techniques that I needed to learn. I was learning the programs like, you know, Photoshop and Illustrator and like I was learning how to use the computer to draw, but it was not stuff that I was interested in whatsoever. Like I could care less about designing wine bottles or making, you know, like a fake grocery store or like whatever. It was just like like minimal tasks they were having us do. He saw it because I was not getting a good grade in that class. And he was like, yo, I know that you don't like this, and I can see that like you might be ahead of what we're doing, because like you're doing stuff that all of your little neighbors in your class can't do.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody this, because if you do, I might get in trouble. He's like, but rather than do the final project, I'm going to give you a different final project. And I was like, okay, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And he was like, you like clothing, you like designing clothes. Like at the time I had like, it wasn't really a brand, but I was like just making t-shirts just for fun. And
just like rocking the stuff that you rock yourself.
Yeah. And he was like, okay, rather than turn in the final project, which was like something dumb, I want you to make me a clothing line and bring that in. And he's like, you have to bring in like an actual line sheet, which I had no idea what a line sheet was at the time. He's like, I want you to bring in a line sheet, which is like several different graphics, like what you would sell to a retailer.
Yeah.
And then I want you to bring in an actual physical t-shirt that you make.
Damn.
And I was like, bro,
you're like, hell
it's
yeah.
on. It's on. I've never worked so hard all my life on that project.
Yeah.
And I turned it in. I made the t-shirt in his size so that he could wear it. And like, I'm so mad I can't remember his name, but like that teacher, I was just like, oh man, like that's so rad. Like I had this experience with school, especially because of private school, where like teachers are mean and jerks and whatever. And like this one teacher was just like, he recognized that I was not into it, but I could be if you treated it the right way.
Yeah.
And he had me do that project, and like literally I did that and then was like, okay, this is for sure what I want to do. I want to be fashion, something.
It's crazy. It's crazy how like the most random person, like it won't be like a family or a friend, will uplift like your uniqueness and your strengths. You know what I'm saying? They like harness that out of you, and they take it out of you. You know what I'm saying?
I think he just really, he caught it before I think a lot of other people did, because other people in class just kind of thought like, he's not doing his work.
Yeah.
He's not, you know, like, it was like, because I didn't do that great in college. I got like very minimal passing grades.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, okay, well, college isn't really for me. not about that life. I don't really want to go work construction. What can I do to learn about this industry that I want to be in, which is clothing? I really love skateboarding. I grew up with skateboarding and BMX and all that stuff. So that was very much a part of my life, even though I was terrible at it. It was still like, I love skateboarding. And even to this day, like I keep up with skateboarding like every single day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't skate because I'm terrible at it. And if I get hurt now, my whole life changes. But I still really appreciate it and I love it. And it was always been something that was a part of my core. Just like BMX was the same thing. Like I was that kid that like we made dirt jumps in like my backyard or my friend's backyard until one of us like broke our leg, and then we pretended like that never happened. And it was kind of, I was that kid that, because I grew up in the generation of like half internet, half without internet.
Yeah.
There was like that time of, I was outside a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
But there was also a time where I was like inside on the computer and learning stuff. But I was like, okay, if I want to do something that's fashion based, but like maybe has skateboarding or kind of roots and that kind of vibe, what do I do? Like there's not school for that, at least to my knowledge, that I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right. Also, I'm getting older. So I'm like 18, maybe at this time, 19. And I'm like, all right, I'll get a job in that industry.
Mm-hmm.
No idea how to do that. Because I was like, where do you even find these brands to get a job with?
Yeah.
The only thing that I could find that was like somewhat close to that, because the other goal of mine, I kind of had two goals always growing up. One was the brand, and the other was like a store. Because it was like, to me, that was kind of the same thing. Like a store and a brand, I think in my younger age was like, well, yeah, like brands have stores. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to like walk around the mall and I'll find something that I can go work for. And then I'll just like learn how to make a store. And then I'll use everything that I learn and make my own store.
Mm-hmm.
The store that I happened to walk into was Zoomies.
Mm-hmm.
I applied there. They liked me. They hired me on. And I started working at Zoomies. And at first, I didn't know how long it was going to be. I didn't really plan on it being a long-term thing. It was mostly just like, okay, I'm going to like steal all the knowledge that they have. And I'm going to apply it to what I want to do, which I don't really know what that is yet. But
You just wanted to spy on
yeah, it was kind of like, kind of. I don't know if it was quite that like, at the time, I don't know if it was quite that black and white, but it was like pretty much what I wanted. It was like, I need to learn how to do a store that's cool. Zoomies is a cool store. Yeah. So I was like, all right, well, let's go learn that. One of the managers of that store is still a really good buddy of mine, Javi, from that store. He's the one that hired me, and we like immediately clicked. Because he was kind of in the same thing. He liked clothing and wanted to do something, but just didn't really know how. So we started working there. Life kind of happened. I end up getting promoted, and then I have the opportunity because basically like a girl that I was dating, her whole family was moving up north to the Bay Area. And I was like, get out of Riverside? Sick! Like, cause you know what I mean? Like, nothing against the IE, but I've been there, done it. You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, yo, I want to experience other stuff.
It's time to move on.
Bay Area is dope.
Yeah.
Like, I've never even been there. So I for sure want to move there. So I was like, okay, cool. Went home to my parents. They're terribly upset, but I was like, yo, I'm moving to the Bay. Like, I'm just doing it. So I move up there. Thank God I was able to transfer to a different Zoomies up there. So I kind of like already had a job, and I kind of like became an adult like really quick. I went from being like an 18-year-old kid that like really had no idea what I wanted to do to being like a 20-year-old kid that was like, I have my first apartment, and like it's a really shitty apartment, but it's my apartment. And like I'm paying my bills, and I have a steady job, and I kind of got sucked into that really fast, where it was like all the creative stuff and fun stuff that I wanted to do, and like I was gonna make this brand, and I was gonna be a hero, and all this stuff kind of was just like, oh, I can do a lot of that stuff here in this job, and like be safe to a certain degree, but also just like I really enjoyed it. It was good. Like I liked talking to people. I liked selling stuff, And like, it was kind of, I was getting those same kind of like endorphins where it was like, this is like me selling my own stuff.
Yeah.
But I get to sell like all the dope brands that are already cool.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to sell my brand. I've got like 50 brands in the store that I can kind of like be a little representative of.
Yeah.
And so that kind of like sucked me in for a while. And I did that I worked for Zoomies for almost 8 years.
Damn.
And it became very quickly like my career. I got promoted from like seasonal sales grunt. Like the kid that's only supposed to be there for like a month during holiday to store manager. And then like they start talking about upper management, like maybe district manager or whatever it was. My highest point was I had my own personal store that I took care of. And then there was 2 other stores in the Bay Area that I like kind of looked after.
Yeah,
it was like a district manager, but like not really, because I didn't have a title or anything, and I didn't get like the cool phone or the pay raise. It was just kind of like more responsibility to see if I could do it, right? I loved it. Like that was like, I thought that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life because I was really good at it. I was good at managing people. I was good at talking to people, whether it was an employee or it was the public. And like, it was just something that I realized that like selling in like the retail world is something that like I was pretty good at it. I don't know. I had a natural kind of vibe for it.
You just like fit right into
Yeah. So like even to this day, my mom is like the person that like you can take her to a grocery store and she'll hang out with like complete strangers. Like she's known them for 30 years. Like my mom was the person, like my dad's always like, oh, you can't take her anywhere. Cause she'll always find like someone to talk to. And it's like, dude, I'm trying to get like, come on, we need milk. Like, let's go. You know, but it's like my mom's hungry. My mom's having like a half-hour conversation with some lady that she has no clue who it is. Yeah. So I think I get that kind of from her. But so I'm doing the Zoomies thing. Everything's cool. I'm like becoming an adult. I always like tell people like I lived a whole life before I lived this life. Yeah. 23, I have a kid. That's something that no one else. That's the first time that's ever been mentioned, probably ever. I do have a son in the Bay Area. I got married, did the whole thing. Got divorced, did that whole thing. Then I'm like, the Zoomies thing kind of started to become more and more of a job. Okay. And that endorphin and that high and that like crazy, that oomph that I got from it started just to become like, all right, this is just like a gig. And for me, that hurt a lot because like I was working under certain people that weren't really fond of me. And like, it was something where like something that I cherished so much was like, man, this is like not fun anymore. And I let myself kind of get into that vibe. And when you get yourself into that vibe, what happens? Typically, like if a sports player doesn't like what he's doing, he's going to play shitty.
Play like shit.
Right?
Yeah.
So like my performance as a store manager started to kind of go downhill. And that was like the perfect opportunity for the persons above me that didn't really enjoy me that much to get rid of me. Yeah. So I got fired.
So why do you think that kind of happened? Do you think because it was just kind of like the next phase in your life that was starting to grab you? Or do you think it was because you wanted to tap into that creative side of you again?
I think part of it, I think it's a little bit of both. Okay. I had always done kind of like side hustles. Like I had a different clothing brand pretty much the entire time that I worked for Zoomies that I had actually started with my buddy Javi who hired me there. It never really got anywhere past the garage, but I learned a lot from it because like I learned, like me and him went and took a silk screening class and like learned how to screen our own shirts. We invested in the equipment, bought the equipment together, and like the equipment was in my garage. And so like I was printing shirts while working at Zoomies, but it was like very like I made 2 things like a year. Like it was like very, very backburnered. But I always had it and I always wanted it. I just didn't really know how to do it. But me leaving Zoomies kind of clicked where it was like, now I can do this.
Now it's time.
Even though for me it was like, oh man, like I'm like 24, 25, you know, like I'm old. you know, in my mind. Now I'm old. But like back then I was like, oh dude, is it too late? And like a bunch of my friends were like, no, I don't think so. Like, just try it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when it was like, okay, I want to do something.
Mm-hmm.
That was when Slushcult, which originally was named Slurpcult,
mm-hmm.
kind of came about.
Mm-hmm. Before we jump into that real quick, what are probably the biggest lessons you learned working at Zoomies, at one of like the biggest retailers, you know?
I think a lot of things that I really appreciate about that store is that they let you express yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there was rules and there were certain things that you had to do. There was certain things that had to look a certain way.
Yeah.
But you were still allowed to put your spin on it. And I think empowering people to be able to use their creativity
to express
in a fun
themselves
way,
in a way, yeah,
is really powerful.
Yeah.
Because I've worked for other retailers who don't do that, where it's like they print you out a picture and like this window display has to look like this. And that, I think, takes all the trust out of that employee, where it's like, I don't think you can do a good job. I think you have to do it this way.
Yeah.
And I understand that there has to be some standards, but Zoomies is really well at like, hey, you have to make a window and it has to have these things in it, but like go nuts.
Yeah.
And that's something where if you talk to pretty much any Zoomies worker, they fucking love working for Zoomies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they love it. It's their life. And the reason why it's their life is because Zoomies is really good at empowering people to do it themselves.
Yeah.
Which is what I was always about. I was a DIY, do it yourself, if you don't know what that means. I was the DIY king. I have DIY. I tattooed DIY or die on my own leg. That's how much I appreciate the DIY culture.
Yeah.
And I think Zoomies really embodies a lot of that in the way that they let their employees kind of own their own stores, which is cool.
That's awesome.
So the brand, sorry, I've used all this time and now we're just barely getting to the brand.
No, that's cool. Well, yeah, let's talk about the origin. Like, why was it Slurpcult first? What was the background of the origin of how this brand came about?
The brand originally was Slurpcult, and it was because me and a few of my friends really enjoyed Slurpees, slushies, any kind of frozen drink.
Yeah.
So much to the point where we would try to like make each other jealous by getting them. So like I would go get a Slurpee, I would take a picture of it, and I'd send it to the group chat. And it'd be like, haha, I got mine. Like, where's yours at? That was around the time when Instagram, Instagram was around, but that was the time it was kind of like booming. That was when it was like, oh, this is going to become a thing. This is like 2012, 2013. And so we moved the group chat into an account. I made like a Slurpcult account. And we started posting on there. It was kind of just like a hashtag thing. And I realized pretty fast that like, because originally there was 4 of us that would post back and forth. So the hashtag maybe had 10 things in it, 20 things in it.
You're talking about like 4 people, like
4
kind of
people,
own an account.
4 people kind of using
the same account,
an account,
Gotcha.
and the same hashtag to post in. Right? It was originally Slurpee Cult. That's how I was very not planning on making this a business.
Yeah.
But then really quickly, it kind of, we would look in the account and we would look in the hashtag and there'd be like 100 photos. And I'd be like, yo, we haven't posted this many times. Like, who's this person? Is this your homie? And they'd be like, no, we thought it was your homie.
It's like, this is none of us.
And I was like, whoa, this could be a thing. Like, what if this is a thing? Like, there's strangers posting in our account that we have not even told the world about yet. It was just like natural progression. And so I told my buddies like, hey, I think I want to like pursue this. I've got time. I'm jobless. And I have the equipment. I can print. I can do all this ourselves. I think I have the ability to do this. I want to try it. So they're like, yeah, go for it. So I started making these little stickers in my garage that were like literally just like UPS labels that I would steal from the post office and then spray paint with like a stencil. This is when like graffiti and obey was like really popping. So I thought I was cool doing these stickers, right? So I was making these stickers in my garage and I posted them online and I was like, hey, whoever wants a sticker, just email me with your address. I'll give you a free sticker. Not realizing that I was gonna have to make like 700 stickers.
Oh shit.
So that got old really fast because I'm literally hand painting them, hand cutting them out with scissors into the shape of a Slurpee. Like our logo that we have now, this thing, literally was like a piece of paper that I was spray painting and then cutting out all by hand. So after making like 1,000 of those, that got old fast. And I was like, dude, okay, first of all, there's obviously demand for this, but there's also like, what if this could become the thing that I always wanted it to be? And it kind of happened on accident. Like, that's so weird that like my whole life I wanted something, I just didn't know what it was. And it happened completely spontaneous on accident.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to make a t-shirt and just see what happens. So I took that same logo, I made the screen, I printed it in my garage. I think I made like 15 shirts. I put them online with like a, you know, like an old crappy Big Cartel website.
I was gonna say Big Cartel, right?
Big Cartel. Yeah. Shout out to them for starting every business that I know.
Yeah.
So I make these 10 shirts or 15 shirts. I don't even know how many I made. I printed it until like 4 o'clock in the morning until I couldn't do it anymore. And I put them online and they all sold out in like the first day.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this could be it. Like this is really going to be it.
Yeah. But it's crazy because it just started as a movement, technically.
Completely.
Yeah.
I mean, it was literally an Instagram with no product for the first couple months.
Yeah, yeah.
And it just started hitting. Like it was, a lot of it was friends at first, and then it was strangers, and then it was like, whoa, this is like, it's tumbling. Like the tumbleweed was getting bigger.
Was it do you think it was the fascination of the movement, the fascination of Slurpees, or was it just like also when it became apparel?
I don't know. It's really hard to say. So one thing that we've had from the very beginning, and I mean from the very, very day one of the brand, is this colorway.
Okay.
So the pink, orange, green, what we call Holy Trinity, has been there since day one.
Yeah.
The reason why is because when I decided I wanted to make a sticker, I was looking around my garage. I just happened to have those 3 spray cans. Like literally another happy accident, right? I always liked neon colors. I was always, like I said, I was kind of that weird kid that made stuff growing up. And I always had this fascination with like neon orange, neon pink, even though like it was kind of girly. Like my parents didn't really care. They encouraged me to do whatever, right? So like I always loved pink. I always loved orange. I always liked these bright, crazy colors, green. And so those were just in my garage from like other projects. And I was like, oh, like if I layer them correctly, it'll look like 3 different flavors in a cup. Yeah. That was like the thing. When you go, you got like...
You mix them up.
You mix your cup. Yeah, like the suicide cup or whatever they call it, right? So like, I was like, okay, if I layer it correctly, it'll look cool. So at first, I think I put the colors in a different order because it's always pink, orange, green now. I think originally I had green in a different place, and I realized that when you painted those 2 paints together, they bled really bad and it became like an ugly brown. And I was like, oh man, like that doesn't look good. I can't do it that way. So then like I learned that like the pink goes in the orange and it will fade and it'll kind of like look good. And then the green and the orange kind of don't hurt each other as much. Yeah. So that literally was like all kind of like a necessity also / accident. And I think the colors is part of what I learned in school, was that like strong brands have strong colorways.
They have like a theme.
Yeah. And like that's something that I posted about on our Instagram today, is that like our colorway, the Holy Trinity, has become so much of a part of the brand that it's almost more than any logo or it's more important than anything, which is so weird because like when I look at brands, you know, like really big brands, you can kind of see that. Like you look at Tommy Hilfiger, it's red, white, blue. Yeah. Like you look at, you know, like even like when you look like NASCAR stuff, like you can tell it's the M&M's car because you see like the big yellow, the red, the green. Like it's, even if you don't know what that is, it's very recognizable.
Yeah. Or like Diamond, right?
Yeah, like Diamond with the Tiffany, right? Well, not Tiffany. But like that's all. It's very recognizable. And even though it kind of happened on accident, as soon as I had it, I was like, that's it. Yeah, like that has to be it. And to this day, I have people that will like go to Target and find like packs of sponges that are like our colors or like toothbrushes, and they'll post it and be like, bro, ripping off Slushcult, thanks Target. Yeah, and it's like, dude, that was not intentional at all by that brand, but like it's crazy that people recognize that colorway so much, and it means way more than just random highlighter colors.
Yeah.
Like it really resonates with people, and I think that's part of the early branding that I saw very early on that ended up sticking with us. I think the other part of it was just the fascination that like I do run it anonymously. And like I said kind of earlier when we talked, like it is for multiple reasons. It's fun because it's, you know, the cult leader thing, and like obviously it makes it a fun mystery, but the real core value of it is the fact that I always wanted people to really focus on the brand and not me.
Yeah. That's interesting because there's usually like technically Slushgod is still a face, but there's always like a face, right?
Yeah, it becomes its own. I wanted the brand to be its own entity, and like Slushgod persona kind of came out of that, right?
Yeah.
But it was the brand first, always.
Yeah.
And I really wanted the focus to always be on the brand because that's what really mattered.
Yeah.
I don't, dude, I'm a dorky fat kid. You know what I mean? Like, and that was always my thing was like, I don't need to be the hotshot guy. Like my dream car is not a Lamborghini. My dream car is a work van, which I was able to buy last year. And like, that's something where it's like, my mind was always just a little bit in a different direction from a lot of other entrepreneurs and a lot of other brand owners that like really want to do it so they can be cool. And it's like, I'm not cool. I want this to be cool.
Yeah.
And like, I would rather you focus all of your time and love and dedication to this because this shouldn't be such a big part of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was a cool way to keep my ego in check because if I take this off, no one really knows what I am. Yeah. So it's like, it was a way for me to keep myself in check. And it was a way for our customers to kind of become really close with us without being close, which is a really weird, interesting thing just because I have had people tell me that they feel really close to me, even though they don't know who I am. And then if you come to an event where I'm there, I don't wear the mask at events unless it's going to be filmed. When people do finally get to meet me, it's like, oh, I know what he looks like now. And like, I get that a lot. Like there has been some kids where like, they'll stand in the corner, like try and take a picture of me.
Yeah.
But for the most part, most of our cult members really like, they want the secret.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not like they want it because they want to expose me. They want it because they want the secret. You know, like it's like, oh, like I've had kids where it's like, don't worry, bro, I'll never share this picture. It's just for me. And it's like, yo, like that's like really special because not a lot of people have that, right? Like, and I think that's why I think the keeping myself a secret has worked for so long because like, it's not something that people want to get rid of. People just want to be more and more a part of it.
Yeah.
And that's like really special. And I think that's why initially when we very first started, that was the lure. And then kind of as the company grew and as we got to expand, it became more and more of what the brand's values were because I was finally able to have a platform to explain what those values were.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you might come for the bright colors and you might come for the silly graphics, but then you stay when you realize like we're pretty real.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a real community.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you describe the style? Because I kind of see like a streetwear, almost like there's like a little skateboarding in it. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's hard because this was a hard thing when we started doing trade shows. They didn't know where to put us. Or what are you, streetwear? I mean, I'm not really.
Yeah.
Like, well, we're like maybe on the sidewalk. Yeah. Like maybe with sidewalk wear. Is there a row for that? And they'd be like, no. And I'd be like, well, shit. Like we're not really a skateboarding brand. We're not really streetwear. Where do we go? And it was like
we're just a movement.
the whole umbrella of like lifestyle brand happened, right? And I think that for a lot of brands, that's a crutch. Like a lot of people were like, oh, we're a lifestyle brand. It's like, what lifestyle do you represent? You know what I mean? Like, but I think for us, it actually does work because it's like I do represent a lifestyle. The lifestyle is being comfortable with yourself, being open and being, you know, like responsible for what you do. And it's like our values kind of became what our lifestyle was. And it was like open expression is our style. And that's kind of where it's weird because our audience is very different from a lot of other audiences to where I have kids who are 12 years old that wear my brand because of Zoomies. I have kids that are 55 years old that go to Zoomies with or that go to Zoomies or Disneyland with their kids and send me pictures where it's like the dad is wearing it.
Dang.
And it's like, that's so weird that we have like such a wide age range.
Yeah.
But it's because we don't really make stuff just for the sense of making stuff. Everything we do, even if it's a really silly graphic, still has a point. And like, it's still something to where maybe your kid will really like it, but like maybe you'll also really like it. And like, you're able to relate with each other just because of that. And that's kind of where like a lot of our like nostalgia kind of stuff comes from. Because obviously if you look at the brand, there is a lot of like 90s nostalgia vibe, right? But it's because like I grew up in that world, but now I'm old enough to appreciate that world.
Of course.
And like, I think that kind of comes across in the brand, in our styling, where it's like, it's streetwear, but I don't want to go so heavy streetwear to where a regular person doesn't feel comfortable wearing it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're way more edgy than like your basic ass clothing company.
Yeah.
So it's like that fine line of finding little niches where we can kind of hit both worlds. And that's why I think we're able to work at stores like Zoomies that has a younger audience, but we also work really well at stores like Urban Outfitters that has an older audience.
Interesting.
Even though those audiences are really different, it works for both because it's like younger kids can like it, but also older kids can like it.
Yeah.
And
it's a fun brand in general. Like
yeah,
overall.
and that's kind of, I think overall, I feel weird saying it, but like people always ask like, what's the meaning of the brand? And it's like fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like
That's
it
awesome,
sounds
man.
dumb because it's like a single word answer,
Yeah,
but it,
yeah.
like realistically, that is what we're about.
Yeah.
You know, and like there are a lot more, I can give you deeper values and deeper meanings, but like the overall vibe of it is like the life doesn't have to be so serious.
Yeah.
Like have some fun.
Yeah.
Wear a bright color every once
Express
in a
yourself.
while. Yeah, express yourself. You know?
Yeah.
And like feel comfortable with what you are because what you are is perfect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like that's kind of, it's kind of been something that's grown over time because when we first started, it was like I didn't really care about legacy or the brand lasting very long, or it was just kind of like I was making shit that I wanted to make because no one else was making it. Now I'm much more conscious of like I need this brand to last a long time.
Yeah.
And I need this brand to be something that, I go to like thrift markets and flea markets a lot, and I like to buy older stuff. You get like the old Harley shirt, or like you find like the cool old
Like vintage
Nintendo stuff, vintage stuff, right? It's such a big trend right now. But I just like going because it's just fun to see stuff that I used to like and still like. And I kind of started thinking about it because the world has kind of gone into this like fast fashion mode where everyone wants to just get really rich and then no one cares. So my thing was like, I have to build a legacy with this brand that will last long enough to where a kid 20 years from now is stoked to find it.
Goes to the
at
thrift
the
store
Rose Bowl.
and sees.
Yeah,
Slushcult.
and like that's something where it's like
That's
it's kind of
awesome,
funny
man.
because I've had people kind of tell me like, oh man, like I found your shirt at the thrift store, like, and they almost think it like that's like a jab. And I'm just like, yo, that's just dope.
Yeah.
Like that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if I can have something where you're stoked to find it later on and have like this cool older piece, like that's not something that's any negative connotation to it. Like that's good. Like I get stoked when I find like old Tommy Hilfiger or like old, Ralph Lauren, and like that's something where like those dudes shouldn't be bummed on that. Those dudes should be stoked that someone like me can appreciate something that they made in the 90s and it gets a whole new life, you know? But that's kind of what made me wake up to the fact that I was like, man, like I have to start making stuff that's going to last that long. And I have to start being more responsible with what we make because I need to make sure that the environment is good enough to be that long.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we've really fine-tuned the brand over the past couple of years to really be very high quality and stuff that is made responsibly and stuff that is going to be made ethically to where we can be really proud of it and I can be proud of it for a long time to come.
You know what's interesting that I actually just thinking about, I don't know why, but shout out to Brandon, by the way, from ID Supply. That's how we met.
Heyo.
Yeah. And I think it's safe to say that what I notice is you actually have a lot of appreciation for brands out there.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Like I noticed, like, yeah, you had like the Chanel necklace, I think. And,
Yeah.
we're talking about, and, of course, working at Zoomies too.
Yeah.
And then you're going to all these trade shows with all the other guys over there. Like, you have a true appreciation for the culture and everything that's involved around that.
Yeah. And I think that's from two reasons. Part of it is I've always really loved that culture.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to be a part of, like, I dreamt from the time I was in 5th grade, because I saw what a trade show was with my dad.
Yeah.
I knew that they had trade shows for other things. And it was like from very early age, like I have wanted to do what I'm doing right now literally since 3rd grade.
Mm-hmm.
And like the fact that I even have the opportunity to try is such a huge blessing that I will forever be grateful for. And then the culture part came in, and it was like, wow, there are areas in this industry where I can not only try, but I can actually do pretty well in.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see other people get stoked on what I make. And that to me was like the number one gratifying thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like for me, I was always excited to go to the shows. I was always excited to be a part of these events because to me it was like, this is what I've always wanted to do. And these are all the brands that I got to look up to. And now I'm next to them.
Yeah.
Like that was a trip for me.
Yeah,
because when I worked, and that leads me to my second point, was the other reason why I think that's such a core thing inside me and why I appreciate it's never been me versus the world.
Yeah.
It's us versus the world, right?
Yeah.
And I think I got a lot of that because I worked in retail.
Mm-hmm.
So like I learned very early on, like I care about these companies.
Yeah.
And I want them to do well. So like when someone comes in the door and wants to get something that's like whatever, I'm going to try and steer them in the direction of the stuff that I like.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it was like, you get that sense of like, I care about brands like Benny Gold, Mishka, Flying Coffin, Diamond, like all those brands, because like
all the OGs,
I used to sell all those brands.
Yeah.
So I have an appreciation for them. Even if I met the owner or if I didn't meet the owner, it was like, it always feels like a little bit of like, I helped that company.
Yeah.
Even though it's in a really small way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I did, And also working in that environment allowed me to meet people and get people that ended up becoming like mentors of mine that I would have never had. Mm-hmm. Like one of the reasons why, and like I have absolutely, I will tell anybody this. One of the absolute reasons why I'm sitting in this chair right now is because I had people that I looked up to that took the time to talk to me. Mm-hmm. People like Greg Mishka, people like Benny Gold. Mm-hmm. Those two dudes, I mean, Benny Gold literally in the very early on stages, because I used to go visit him at the store when I lived up there, he saw what I was doing. Dude, Benny Gold was probably like my 20th follower on Instagram. Mm-hmm. Like he knew exactly what I was doing when I was doing it because he already knew me. Yeah. So like he followed the brand. Like to me, I was like, oh my God, one of my favorite brands followed this. Like this is crazy. And then I would go to his store and like he would kind of pull me aside and be like, yo man, like you might have something here. Yeah. Like you should, like I know your whole vibe of like kind of fucking around, but like
it's like look into this, bro.
You should do this, man.
Yeah.
And like that was kind of like it woke me up to like, well, dude, if he's saying that, then maybe I've got something, And so like I remember going to the shows and it would be like, for me, like the trade show is so much more than trying to sell your brand. Yeah. The networking that you were able to do there. And like, for me, it was like almost like high school reunion. Like I never went to my high school reunion because I didn't care. But like, to me, the trade show is my high school reunion. I get to see people I don't normally get to see. I get to see, what people are doing. Cause a lot of people kind of jump from different brands and And it was kind of like the people side of it was really big for me. Yeah. And I think that's why I do care so much about other brands is because I know that there's people like me behind them. Yeah. And I kind of grew up in the time when this industry was very closed off, and it was very like, this is mine,
Yeah.
and you can't have it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to ever share with you where I get my embroidery done or where our shirts are from.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though, like, realistically,
everyone gets it from
streetwear,
the-
bro, everything is owned by Gildan.
Yeah.
Like, we're all making the same 6 t-shirts.
Everyone gets the same shit.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But the industry that I kind of jumped into was at that time was very like, this is ours, you can't touch it.
Yeah.
And you had to discover it on your own. And so that's what I did. I just like researched all day, all night, trying to figure out where this gets made. Or I would make stuff wrong and then be like, well, okay, throw that away, start over again. And like, I learned the hard way versus I think nowadays kids have it a lot easier. But like, that made me appreciate those guys way more.
Yeah.
And then when I got to become friends with them, I realized like, we're all in the same thing, but like, none of us really have to compete.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, yes, there's some level of competition there, but like, my goal was always like, I want to make a circle of friends that we can all share stuff with.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, at the time, that was not existent. So like, I worked really hard the past like 4 or 5 years to kind of make that circle. And like, dude, I have a circle of friends where we do the same events together. We do the same trade shows together. We talk almost every day.
Mm-hmm.
If we sell to the same retailers, and like, you don't realize how much that helps until you're in that circle.
Yeah.
Cause it's like, oh dude, yo, this store hit me up. How much they buy your shirts for?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they buy mine for this price. Oh, dude, that fool is trying to get me for this price.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, even stuff that small, but like, there's no reason why we have to keep that secret.
Yeah.
You know, like we're not enemies. Like,
Yeah.
even though we do compete, we are in the same place. I have probably a larger circle of like 30 people and a smaller people of probably like 12,
Mm-hmm.
where like, literally we do almost everything as a unit, even though we're separate brands.
Yeah.
And like, that kind of unity, I don't think used to exist. And I kind of had to create my own network to make that happen. And I think that's a reason why, like, when you see me, like, even at our own store, I'll wear a Homies brand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to wear my own brand every single day, because to me, that's not representing my culture.
Yeah.
That's not representing who I am. Yes, I will wear my own brand when I'm on a podcast, because like, duh.
Yeah.
But I learned, like, I don't want to have to wear just my brand my whole life. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
understand people that do that, because
Yeah.
it's like, there's so many other cool guys.
Yeah.
There's so many other cool, like, really dope brands where it's like, yeah, I want to wear that shirt,
Yeah.
because that shirt's way cooler than stuff I make.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
like, I would hope that that person would feel the same. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like, that's something that I think has become a lot more open with the internet being as vast as it is now, because like, I think a lot of those barriers and a lot of those like smoke and mirror doors have been kind of busted open,
Yeah.
because like, realistically, if I need to know how to make this, I just Google it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to secretly ask you at a trade show anymore. But I think the other part of that is like the behind the scenes and how people really enjoy that has kind of forced brands to open up.
Yeah.
And I don't think it has to be so secretive anymore.
I think that's good too, because how about the new people who come in?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't want to feel like everyone's against them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You want to go into an industry and kind of, of course you'll face your own adversity, your own competition, but what if you jump into something and there's people there to actually uplift you, to
Yeah.
encourage you?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? To bring you along, you know what I'm saying? So that's good to hear, man. That's good
Yeah,
to hear
I
it's
mean,
like
and
that.
don't get me wrong. I don't want people to think it, like, get it twisted. Like, if I get an Instagram DM from like 40 strangers a day, which happens, saying like, hey, where do you get your shirts made? I'm not going to tell those people.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like, there's no reason why I can't share with someone who I know puts in just as much effort as me, everything. And like, that doesn't hurt. I love that quote where it's like, their success isn't your failure. And I think that when I came into the industry, that was not an appropriate quote.
Yeah, definitely.
Now it's becoming more of a thing, because a lot of brands are realizing that like, none of us are going to last unless we figure this shit out together.
Yeah,
And
that's real, man.
yeah, I think it's been really cool and eye-opening to see like people really appreciate that. And
Yeah.
like, we do different events throughout the year with like the same 7 or 8 brands.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really cool to see that like someone can come to an event and buy something from you and buy something from this person and buy something from this girl and buy something from me. And none of us are fighting each other.
Yeah.
It's just they're kind of just sharing it.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's really special because I don't think that used to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Dude, talk about your store, and talk about what is it, snack gods or snack lords or what is it?
Snack boys.
Snack boys. There we go.
So okay, we'll run through Snack Boys first. Like I said earlier, I had to learn at a very early age, you can't have this.
Yeah.
Right? And it wasn't because I couldn't afford it. It wasn't because it wasn't available. It was because they didn't make it in my size. That to me was like, that sucks.
Yeah.
So I learned really early on, okay, well, I'm going to get really into headwear and I'm going to get really into sneakers because I have those.
Yeah.
I can get those.
Yeah.
I can't get the cool jeans.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get the cool shirts, but that's okay. I make shirts. So I had to learn to like buy big baggy pants and sew them in.
Mm-hmm.
And like I became my own seamstress because I wanted to be cool. I wanted to have the cool skinny jeans that other kids had, but they didn't make them in big boy size. So that's always been with me my whole life. So when I started Slushcult, whatever, I never wanted to leave anybody out.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, man, like there needs to be brands that do this.
Yeah, yeah.
And even like when we got into Zoomies, it was like, oh, we'll take this small through XL. And I'd have to be like, hey, we make that in double X. And they'd be like, oh, okay, we'll take a couple. But it wasn't something that was asked for ever by anybody. And I was like, man, like that sucks. Like I know that there has to be other people like me.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I know that.
I ain't the only one.
Yeah, I know I'm not the only one. Like there's no reason why I can't be cool by being big, right? And so we always wanted to make bigger sizes. And then Snack Boys kind of just became this, it kind of became its own entity of like,
it's like another movement again, right?
This is the thing again. And like at first I didn't really want it to be its own brand, and it's still kind of, it's weird. It's like it's separate brand, but it's still us.
So under the umbrella.
It's all on the same website. It's all under the same umbrella.
Yeah.
But it's kind of just a way that I can make certain graphics and certain, like something that doesn't quite fit our movement can fit that movement because it's similar enough.
Yeah.
And we make sizes from small all the way up to 7X in certain products.
Mm-hmm.
And it's way more expensive, like cost-wise. Sucks.
Yeah.
Like it's, when you look at like buying t-shirts wholesale, it's like small through XL is one price.
Yeah.
And then double XL, you add $2. 3XL, you add $2 more. Or it's like to buy a 7X t-shirt literally costs 7 times as much.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly the most profitable thing, but for me, it's that passion project that will always be there.
Yeah.
And even though I don't work on it as much as I should, it's always going to be there because it's just something that like, it's a part of me.
Yeah.
And
something
like,
you resonate with for sure.
Yeah. And that's why like, it's kind of just become a part of Slushcult because it's like, it's always going to be both, you know, but yeah, Snack Boys is definitely, it's been a very fun kind of side project for us.
Yeah.
And the store, man, the store was something that I kind of said I always wanted, right?
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, guys, I visited this store in Santa Ana. This store is insane.
Thank you.
It's insane. I promise you, you will be amazed. You'll be amazed by this store. It's like, yeah, go ahead, man.
So the store happened for multiple reasons. We didn't really talk about this, but the brand got into Zoomies, right? So the brand went from just the crappy big cartel to like, whoa, this is going to be my full-time job.
Yeah.
I quit my retail job at the time. I worked for Vans Shoes and dove full in. This is on July 7th will be 4 years of me just doing this as my full-time job. No other side job. So that was cool. That was a huge monument for us. That was my start into, this is no longer just like a fun side project or weekend warrior project.
Yeah.
This is a real business now. I had a business license for the very first time. I had a trademark pending for the very first time because we had to switch our name because of a lawsuit. That's a long whole podcast by itself. But for the first time, it was real when we started Zoomies. Then Zoomies kind of built, and our e-commerce built, and our e-commerce actually started to get pretty good, and it was thriving, and I was happy. Then we started doing other stores. We launched in a store called FYE, which was like the old CD shop in the day.
Oh,
They
yeah,
started
yeah,
carrying
yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
That was cool. That lasted for a little while. Then, it was kind of back to just regular mom and pop stores, just a handful of like boutiques and Zoomies. And then we got in Urban. That was like a whole nother accomplishment, because Urban, although it's very similar to Zoomies, is also very different.
Yeah.
And it was like, holy shit, dude. Like, I have a clothing brand that we have a website. I have an office. We're in Zoomies and Urban and a handful of mom and pop shops. Like, this is a real thing now.
Shit's getting real.
Like, this is no longer something that I can like laugh about on the weekends. This is something that like, whoa, this is real.
Yeah.
And all that accomplishment, super grateful, super stoked. It's something that I could never even fathom of. It's like the dream come true. But part of me was like, you know what? I'm really good at customer service.
Yeah.
I'm pretty fucking good at it. I get emails all the time where people are like, oh man, your customer service took such good care of us. Make sure you tell that guy he did a good job. And I email back, oh man, I'll be sure to forward this to them. And I get off the email and go,
yeah.
Because I don't have employees.
Yeah.
It's me versus the world, baby. So, but I'm like, you know what? I know that I can give people an experience that no one else can give them.
Yeah.
I know that I can because of who I am, and just
Your
I know that I can.
and just who you are. Yeah.
I also can create a store that's different than anyone else has ever seen. I know that I can. I just don't have the money for it because it's extremely expensive. So part of me was super stoked to be in Zoomies. I'm super stoked to be in Urban. All these great stores. We're in stores in Canada. I have stores in Mexico. I'm living the dream, right? But part of me was like, man, I gotta get that next step.
Yeah.
And flagship stores, when I was younger, was something that was like, that was the goal. Then slowly, because the economy was kind of going down the tank, and flagship stores kind of became like not so necessary.
Yeah. It became all online.
Now online,
Yeah.
online is the new flagship store. So rather than spend tens of thousands of dollars on stores, people just spent that money on website developers. We have got a pretty good website. I'm proud of it. I coded a lot of it myself. It's cool. But I can't interact with kids on the website.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good on the phone. I'm on Instagram all day. Like my life I'm never not working. But like, I had this feeling of like, when I take my phone and I put it in my pocket, I would go, I got this weird emptiness.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to fill it.
Yeah.
I can grow my online. That's cool. I can do pop-ups. That's fun. But I want that shit all the time.
Yeah.
And I kind of realized part of the reason why I like doing trade shows so much isn't because I want to go make more business. I mean, dude, half the time we were doing trade shows, we'd pay thousands of dollars to do agenda, to do magic. I'd spend thousands of dollars on bringing my team there, and hotels and parties and the build out of the booth. And I kind of realized halfway in through doing them that, like, I don't even care about the sale. I just want to make this cool thing and present it to people.
Yeah, I was gonna say designing that booth.
Yeah. I want to design this, and I want to put you in my world for the 5 minutes you're there.
Your booth
right?
at the, was it the Magic or Agenda in Vegas when I saw you?
Was it the living room one?
Or
was it the kid's bedroom?
No, I think it was the living room one, I want to say.
But it was probably Agenda.
Okay.
It was probably Agenda.
Yeah, no. But
yeah, so
just to add on, your presentation was definitely different than all the other booths out there.
I mean, dude, there would be times when I would build the sickest booth. We would put tons of time and effort into it. I mean, I basically, so the booth that I think you're talking about is the one that I recreated my own child bedroom.
Okay.
We painted the walls teal. I put shit all over the walls, posters. We had Nintendo 64 in there. I had a bed. I didn't even bring samples. There was like maybe a few samples that we threw in the corner on the ground to represent like a dirty laundry pile. And buyers would come in and be like, oh man, like this is so cool. Like, where's your stuff at? And I'd be like, bro, I'm in the middle of Tony Hawk 2. Like, go. Like, come on, dude, I'm trying to play.
Yeah.
That was the trade show we got Urban at.
Damn, nice.
They came, never saw a sample.
Yeah.
But they realized the vision, they saw the vibe, and I talked to them, and it was kind of like they got it. It clicked.
Yeah.
So I realized part of the reason why I like doing trade shows wasn't necessarily because I wanted to go there and sell, and it was never about that. It was I wanted to be able to create something that people could see that was like kind of almost like a miniature art show, right? And I was like, man, I want to do that all the time.
Yeah.
And I want to call it a store.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the vibe that I went into the flagship store environment, because flagships kind of were out the window because it was too expensive. But I was like, it's still important that that's there, because I have to have a place where I can show someone our world, and I can have people, I have to have a place where people can see what we're about.
Yeah.
Because otherwise the brand is just another clothing brand.
Yeah.
And
True.
online, our website does a pretty good job. Our website's very colorful. It's very, but it has to be streamlined so it works. And like, there's lots of stuff that I wish we could do online that you just necessarily can't, because it just doesn't make sense for e-commerce.
Yeah.
So the store was the opportunity where it's like, okay, I can show someone what we do, and I can be there, and it's going to be a whole completely different experience, right?
Yeah.
So like, I grew up idolizing brands like Paul Frank. Paul Frank has always been like my favorite brand. Another one of the brands that's very, in my mind, similar to that was Johnny Cupcakes.
Mm-hmm.
I've been friends with Johnny for a long time, and I always loved that when you went into his store, it was such an experience.
Yeah, yeah.
You got the bakery. It smelled like a bakery, and it tricked people into, whatever. His whole story is amazing. And I was like, dude, I want to do something like that. Like, I grew up going to Disneyland and seeing all those facades. And I grew up idolizing Jim Henson with all their facades and their backgrounds. And, like, they would just make these crazy environments. And I was like, I want to do something like that. I just don't really know what it is. But I want to do something like that for the store. So, obviously, us being kind of a nostalgic, snack, slushy brand, the kind of quickie mart, mini mart, gas station vibe made sense.
Yeah.
We had done pop-ups in the past that were kind of that, but like just not fully ours. But it was kind of that idea of like, what if you could make a fake gas station?
Mm-hmm.
But it was, I want to do the bodega facade, but I want to actually make it a bodega.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference between me and like Johnny Cupcakes. Was like, Johnny Cupcakes made a fake bakery to sell clothes in.
Yeah.
I wanted to make a real bakery
Mm-hmm.
to sell clothes and cupcakes in.
Mm-hmm.
Because why not?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't you go to the store and get a bag of chips and a sick beanie?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, this is my perfect store.
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly, this is me as a store, right? Like, I want cool shit and I want snacks.
Yeah.
So I had that kind of vibe, but there was no name, there was no nothing. And I got really lucky. I have a landlord who we rent our office from, who is pretty well known in Santa Ana, and he owns a lot of property there. So I hit him up and I was like, hey, I have this idea to do a store. I love Santa Ana. I love the culture that we have there. I want to be a part of this culture.
Yeah.
Like, our office is on a street that has like a Stussy store, a cool skate shop called Not Us, Nothing Usual. There's now a bait store there,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a bunch of really cool food places there. There's
The
sneaker.
yeah.
Like, to me, it's like, it's all the culture that I want in one little place. It's like miniature Fairfax.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I want to be a part of this culture.
Yeah.
So
Get me in.
I was begging for it.
Yeah.
I want to be a part of this street. I want to be on 4th Street in Santa Ana right now. So I hit him up and I was like, hey man, I have this idea to do a store. This is kind of the vibe, but like, I'm poor. I can't afford a store.
Like, I want this, but I got some guidelines.
What can we do?
Yeah. Work with me.
And we had a meeting one day and I told him the pitch. And he was like, man, I really love your pitch, but like, I don't think you can afford it. And I was like, yeah, so I'm asking you. Like, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
And he goes, you know what? I have a spot around the corner that's way too small.
Yeah.
You're going to turn it down. But I think it might open up soon. Do you want to go take a look at it? And I was like, try me, fool. Yeah. Let's go. Like, what is too small?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't realize that too small was literally going to be 180 square feet. Mm-hmm. It's not much bigger than this room.
Yeah.
But I saw it, and the location was perfect, and I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And I was like...
That visionary in you was like, oh, I'll make this work.
Dude, it instantly clicked. Yeah. All of my practice with packaging and all of my practice with branding and brand development and all of the things that I did at Zoomies with the merchandising and all, like literally like my head was like, this is the only thing I'm focusing on right now.
Yeah.
The only problem is it wasn't empty. Mm-hmm. There was a guy there.
Yeah.
The guy had been there for like 12 years and the store wasn't open very often because he had another store. And I think he put more effort into the bigger store because he needed to. But he always paid rent on time. There was nothing wrong with it. He just was kind of not using it.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, if this ever opens up, I will take it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
We'll talk numbers later. I don't care. I'll figure out a way to pay it. I'll figure out a way to afford it. I have to have this place. It's literally, my whole heart is here.
Yeah.
Like, I need this location.
Yeah.
But at the same time, because of the world we live in with gentrification and all the kind of bad things that have happened in neighborhoods like that, I was very cautious of like, I don't want to kick him out ever. Like, if he decides to leave, it's meant to be.
Yeah.
That's it. No pressure, no nothing.
Yeah.
My landlord was on the same page. I'm really big into manifesting. So, my girlfriend is a witch. That's a whole nother podcast. But I'm very big into manifesting.
Yeah.
So on my phone, I took a picture of the store.
And
I went into Photoshop and I painted the outside of the store the way I wanted it to be.
I love this. Yeah.
And that's still on my phone to this day. I can show it to you. And I woke up every day to that on my screensaver of the store how it was and the store that I wanted to. And every day on my break, partially because I really believed in manifesting, partially because I wanted to see the inside of the store. I'd never even seen the inside. All I saw was the window shut. And it was kind of dark, so you couldn't really see in there. So I would walk over to the store pretty much every day on my break, when basically I just wanted to go over there. I would walk over there and I would just look at it and I would go, oh man, like,
this is
it's going to be mine one day.
Yeah, this is
I don't know when, but this is it.
Yeah.
I know it is. I feel it, you know? And I did that from pretty much like April, starting in April until August. Like pretty on it every day. Because I really wanted to go there when he was open so I could snoop inside.
Yeah.
It was never open. Like literally it was closed this whole time, 4 months, 5 months, whatever it was. And I was like, man, I don't know. Like, I really want the store, but I don't know. And I hit up the landlord and he was like, yeah, man, like, cause I was kind of like, yo, dude, is this guy okay?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if he's an older guy or not, but like, is this still a business?
Yeah.
You know, my landlord would be like, yeah, man, rent's paid. Like, as long as rent's paid.
Is he alive?
Yeah, I don't care what he does. I didn't realize he had 2 stores at the time. So finally, sometime in August, I'm like, man, dude, time is kind of crunching for this year. If I could get it September 1st, I know that I could get it done because I'm a DIY dude. I know that I could, whatever remodel I have to do, and I could probably get it open for Christmas. So then I started saying, like, I really want this September 1st. No joke, bro. I'm on my way to Big Bear with my girlfriend to take her up there for like a birthday or something. And I get a phone call. It's my landlord. Dude just put his 30 days in. You can have this on the 1st. Do you want it? Damn. And I literally like almost pulled the car over, like shook.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. I can't afford it, but I have the opportunity. I have to try and figure this out. So I'm like, yeah, well, like I'm on my way to Big Bear. We'll talk numbers later, but put my name on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like blind leap of faith. I have to have this place.
Yeah.
So luckily we negotiate for like the next month. And I basically told him like, hey man, again, I don't make a lot of money doing this.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything that I make in this brand goes back into the brand.
Yeah.
I don't really pay myself. It's kind of, I mean, doing the podcast stuff, it's kind of, you get what you get type of thing.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, yo, I really can't afford this, but I know I have to do this.
Yeah.
And he told me, he was like, well, you're kind of, there's someone else that wants it too.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, oh no, I've had this thing on my phone for like 4 months. If I lose this right now, I'd be so upset. He's like, he's willing to pay double what you just offered.
Damn.
And I'm just like, all right, well, maybe this is just a dumb dream. It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I told him, I was like, yo, this is what I can afford. I still have to have the office because the store is so small. I can't like put the office in the back.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to have both places. And I was like, this is pretty much what I'm capped for this and for the office and this. It's all I can afford.
Yeah.
It was not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm very extremely lucky. That's all I can do, man. I'm sorry, but like that's what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
Landlord calls me back and goes, so where do you want me to send the paperwork?
Nice.
And I'm like, whoa, what? I got it? And he's like, yeah, man, I believe in what you're doing. And I think that you can bring a really cool, fun vibe and culture to this already kind of developing thing.
Yeah.
And I would rather have you there than have some other store. The other guy wanted to put like a cigarette store there.
Oh,
like
yeah.
nothing. It was nothing like cool. It was just like a store.
Nothing adding value to the culture and the vibe of Santa Ana. Yeah.
But he was willing to pay way more.
Yeah.
And I got really lucky that our landlord turned that dude down and basically let us have it.
Yeah.
And then all the work started because it was like, wow, now I have this place. Now I have to fix it up. So for those of you that don't know, the store is called the Mini Mart, and it is basically a real mini mart mixed with basically like my entire childhood.
Yeah. It's a dope place, man.
It's a flagship store for the brand, but we also sell lots of other stuff that has nothing to do with Slushcult. So like we sell snacks, candy, soda pops. So like the mini mart vibe is definitely true. But we also sell tech decks.
Yeah.
Which is gnarly that like however many years later, I'm slinging tech decks again.
Mm-hmm.
We sell yo-yos. We sell different kind of action figures. I sell Nerf guns. It's pretty much like everything that I appreciated as a kid. I'm now able to sell in a really fun environment to where it doesn't really make sense on paper, but when you see it, it just works.
Yep. When you walk in, it's just like you're walking like back in time almost, but it's just like you get it. Like exactly what you said, it clicks as soon as you see everything.
Yeah, I kind of just, I've taken bits and pieces of everything that I've ever wanted when I was growing up and have kind of implemented them in there. So like we have a miniature arcade in the back with like the Ninja Turtles arcade game and Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Classics. We have a coin toy machine, like a candy machine out front. Because I never left a Toys R Us or a grocery store without like begging my mom for quarters for the quarter machine. So now we're able to like implement those kind of fun nostalgia ideas into a new way. And it's been incredible. Like it's been we opened up in late November and we're only open 3 days a week for now. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But it's working. We're seeing people who obviously were our customers now have a place to come and meet me, experience the store, and kind of I can give them the experience that I was never able to offer before.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're seeing new people discover us.
Yeah.
And that's been something that I really didn't quite expect on this level. But like the random people who are just like stumbling in are now going to be core customers of the future.
Mm-hmm.
And the young kids that kind of skate around town And, I know that like some of those other stores kind of push those kids away. I'm just like, yo, that's our kids.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I want to be the store that has the annoying kids that hang out every day, because I was that kid growing up.
Yeah, yeah.
I was that kid that would ride my bike 3 miles to the skate shop just to get like a hookup sticker
Yeah.
and then leave.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it was like, dude, you spent $2. But
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, but I spent it here.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of the vibe that I want to recreate. And it's also just really fun being able to do stuff in person. So like we have a lot of select products that are only going to be available in the store, because I kind of want to force that interaction of, you have to be here.
Yeah.
Like the internet is too easy now.
Yeah.
Everything is on the internet.
Yeah.
And I can't compete with Amazon. I can't compete with even other brands that have like huge marketing budgets. But I can make a really cool store and force you to go there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of something that, as long as we can control that environment, it's going to continue to grow. And I mean, to be honest, really my goal is to kind of treat the mini mart again like its own entity. And I mean, I got big dreams.
Yeah.
I can see myself in 5-10 years with like 10 or 20 of these.
Yeah.
And like I can be that new cool store.
Yeah.
Like, and was kind of the weird thing when we were opening, was that there was a lot of people saying like, oh my God, like the economy, and this is probably the worst time ever to open a brick and mortar. But like, that's because they have that old way of thinking.
Yeah.
Of like, yeah, because you think I'm opening a store.
Yeah.
And like, yes, I did open a store. We're a retail store. But like, it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
It's a place for kids to hang out. It's a place for kids that don't necessarily feel comfortable in their own skin to feel comfortable. And it's a place where anyone can come and kind of be a part of our culture, even if they don't necessarily fit in anywhere else. And like, that's something that for me has been really special, because I always wanted that as a kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, I did have really cool skate shops when I was growing up that would allow me to come and be that stupid kid. But like, I feel like that kind of started to go away, because like, if you think of like typical streetwear, like LA culture, right? A lot of those stores are not always friendly. A lot of those stores, you can't just go and say what's up to the homie, and it's like buy some shit or get out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like,
it's a different vibe for sure.
To me, it was like, this has to be so much more than a store, otherwise we'll never survive. And that's why we went kind of that route of creating something it's almost just as cool just to go to.
Yeah.
And like, I'm perfectly okay with that. You know what I mean? Like, it's not necessarily a money driven only device. It's more or less to help push the culture of the brand.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think a lot of people kind of forget when they're doing business, is like, not everything has to be about business.
Yeah.
There are some things that can be way stronger, even if you don't see it right away.
Yeah.
But like, even just like something as silly as like picking those 3 colors, like, I never thought 5 years ago that would be something that I'm still doing today.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's the kind of thing where it's like, we made very important decisions about the brand that were not money based.
Yeah.
It was more like, what can we do that'll make this cool for a very long time? Not, I want to get rich.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, that's where I think, we live in a world now where brands are easier and easier and easier to make. I mean, realistically, while doing this podcast, me and you could probably come up with a name, come up with a design, buy a big cartel site, link that big cartel site to a, one of those print on demand.
Yeah.
We can have a brand by the time we leave.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But does that mean anything? And will that brand exist longer than the 15 minutes that you put into it?
Yeah.
Probably not, because there's no soul, right? And I know that I've made decisions, because I have turned a lot of things down that I know that have financially not been helpful to me. But like, to me, it didn't matter. Like the soul of the brand and the culture and like the overall essence of what we are is something that I have to protect.
Yeah.
And you can't do that if you're just driven by money.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that not a lot of people talk about.
Yeah.
That the reason why you see brands who have been here for so long is because like there's way more to that, whatever that brand is.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like it, like there's brands that I don't like
Mm-hmm.
that I just don't understand, or I just don't, like there's brands that I just don't care about.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can respect the fact that like you've done that for a very long time because you know what you are.
Yeah.
And like that's something that I think a lot of people kind of mess up on, is that they start brands for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't understand like this is something that if you do it correctly can be forever.
Yeah. Could be something big. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome, man. So, dude, where can where's the best place for people to reach out to you, and your website, and also just it's off, and then where your store is at?
So the website is just slushcult.com. That is also all social media.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever want to reach me, I literally answer every single Instagram DM.
Yeah.
Myself. I don't have an intern do it. It's pretty much me all the time. So if you guys want to talk to me, reach out. Not saying that I can get to everybody as fast as everybody thinks I can, because we do get a lot of people reaching out, but absolutely hit me up. I'm pretty much an open book other than this. So if you want to ask a question or just want some kind of advice, I'll do my best to kind of answer. And the store is in downtown Santa Ana on 4th Street. It's 202 East 4th Street. And we're kind of next to the Yost Theater, if people probably know what that is. And we're definitely the brightest store in the city. So if you drive by it, you definitely won't miss it, because it's literally bright pink, orange, and green.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, come hang out.
Hell yeah. Well, check it out, guys. I appreciate the Slushgod coming on the
Dude,
podcast,
thank you so much, man.
Yeah, dude. Hey, listen, guys, we know we're going to have a lot of people be listening to this. If you guys are watching or listening, do us a favor, tag me and Slushcult, and let us know that you're watching and listening. Also, if you feel that this episode can inspire someone else, just based off the story and everything that the Slushgod has stated with his, was an incredible story and where it's led him to, let someone know. Share this episode with them. We greatly appreciate it. On Apple Podcast, if you guys could leave a rating or write a review, it would help with visibility. I would greatly appreciate it.
Yes.
And the Slushgod, you gotta do. I don't got those colors, but you do gotta bless the infamous Parables canvas, man.
Oh man, I have the worst signature, but I'll do it.
I appreciate you, man. Parables Podcast with the Slushgod. Get out of here. Jeez.